Today, we are reviewing the most famous car crashes. The key thing about this video is I'm going to be breaking them down. I talk a lot on my channel about driving spiritedly, but also safely, but also fast. So I thought it would be a cool idea to see what happens when it all goes wrong. Just a word of warning for anybody, I will be talking about how the drivers could have done better, how they could have potentially avoided the situation. I know somebody's gonna say this, so that it is not the point of this video to berate or just dumpster on people about their bad driving. The whole point of this is that we all learn and improve and become better drivers. Right then, let's get into our first clip. I'm just gonna let the clip play once all the way through, and then we'll go back, pause it, and break it down.
Well, that was fucking scary.
When I think of car crashes on YouTube, this is the one that I think of. What a classic. So British at the end as well. Oh, that was fucking scary. So let's break this down from start to finish. The key point in the video where it starts to go wrong is he comes over a crest. Now, the issue with the crest, it's a crest into a right-hand turn. And as he comes over the crest, his visibility is reduced. So he doesn't know what is on the other side of the crest. He's not driving particularly slowly either. I think he was right around the national limit of 60 miles an hour. As he comes over the crest, he sees a car on his side of the road making an overtake. Now, this is obviously a stupid idea. Don't overtake right before a blind crest because you don't know what car's gonna come over that crest. It's really stupid and irresponsible driving. But now Christopher has a situation to deal with. Because of the crest into the right, the suspension of the Yaris had not yet settled, so there was a little bit of weight transfer onto the left-hand side of the car. He slammed on the brakes. What that did was load up the front of the car. So now the car was already leaning a little bit to the left because of the right-hand corner, and he applied full brakes, so it also leant forward. What that does is unload the rear right tire. When he slams on the brakes, the car pivots forward, but it also pivots right. Because that rear right tire was unloaded, all the weight went to the left of the car, which points the car right. You will see this as a theme throughout today's video, is that when people are in these situations and they're unfamiliar with the weight transfer of the car and everything that's going on, they tend to overcorrect. I gave a disclaimer at the start of this video, it's not to berate anybody's driving, but because of the cars coming onto him and him not wanting to go into those cars, he overcorrects to the left. I want to draw your attention to a key part of the video, which is right here. This is the point where the overtaking car has actually completed the overtake. So if Christopher had just kept the car right side up, it would have all been okay. Now again, I have to come back to this point. I'm not berating Christopher. Anybody in his situation would have a terrible time. But I genuinely think this was savable. Again, I have to be very clear. I don't think you should have to save situations that are caused by idiots making stupid overtakes. But I do think it could have been saved. If Christopher had come over the crest, let the suspension settle, progressively pushed into the brake, and only had the weight transfer go forward rather than forward and left. Now, it is a Toyota Yaris, so the brakes are not phenomenal, but it's also a light car. I think it's a really interesting topic to even discuss. Could this crash have been saved? I personally think it could have. What do you guys think? If you're enjoying this so far and want me to make more of these videos, press like and maybe subscribe. On to the next clip. So him and his friend both experience understeer. Very common in front-wheel drive cars that with a little bit of performance, like a Golf GTI. So you can tell the camera car is a much more experienced driver than the leading car. You can actually see the brake lights of the leading GTI on as he's entering that corner. Now, he might be trail braking. I don't think he is. I think he is just braking and turning at the same time, which is overloading those front tires and making it so that he can't turn in, which is what caused the understeer. And then here's the theme that we've got throughout the video. He overcorrects. Once he has that understeer and he enters the gravel patch, he steers far too hard to the right, which ends up slingshotting him onto that bank. What I thought was really interesting is the way that the camera car dealt with that situation. So because he was second, he was trying to keep pace with the lead car. The lead car went far too hot into that corner, and it wasn't a corner either of them were ever going to make. He got the understeer, he realized he wasn't going to make the corner, and then he straightened up. When you do this, you can make better use of your brakes, and he looked for the little escape road that was on that dirt area. This was a really good way to avoid a huge accident. If his friend had managed to save it in a similar way, they could have been absolutely fine. And it's a great example of how the first clip should have dealt with the situation. If he could square the car up after that corner and then brake in a straight line, I think he could have done a lot better. On to the next clip. So it seems like such a silly accident, but there is a teachable moment here. And what the McLaren does is plant his foot all the way to the floor and expect to accelerate. Now, he hasn't thought about the fact that he's in a powerful rear-wheel drive car and it's very wet. So what happens is, stereotypical of a mid-engined rear-wheel drive car, when you have a front-engined rear drive car like a BMW M3 or any number of muscle cars, they're a little bit more controllable when the back is sliding around. You have a bit more warning, they're not as snappy. The McLaren, because all of its weight is in the middle of the car over the rear wheels, when it loses grip at the rear, it snaps to the side much more quickly. It's a low ultimate grip situation because it's very wet, the rear spins up, and the slightest amount of camber on the road will send the car one way or the other. Expensive mistake. I would love just to know, did he have the traction control off? Because that can cause situations like this. I would imagine McLaren traction control shouldn't and wouldn't let you do that. Although it was an early McLaren, it's an MP12C, so maybe the traction control in around the 2012s just wasn't as sophisticated as it is today.
Eccola. Oh, madò! Cazzo! Madonna! Oddio, mamma, fermati!
Similar story to the McLaren. Rear-wheel drive, mid-engined, a lot of power. And I'm assuming traction control off. And I guarantee he planted his foot all the way down to the axle. Very similar to the McLaren situation. The car snaps to the side and the driver hugely overcorrects. At this point in the video, the situation is so savable. He can just lift off the gas, keep the wheel straight, and he'll probably be fine. But I think what he actually did in this video is once the car started to go sideways, he got on the brakes. The reason you never get on the brakes when you start to experience a slide is because it further upsets the balance of the car. On to the next. Big warning for this next one. If you are like me and you like French cars, this next one is a little bit of a heartbreaker. Sorry. It just hurts my soul when I see that Renault 5 GT with its front end off and I don't like that. They don't make those cars anymore. When you destroy one, they're not replaceable. These Renault 5 GTs, if you don't know, are actually mid/rear engined rear wheel drive. So it's a similar situation as with the Ferrari and the McLaren. The rear end is very snappy. A little bit too much throttle. Remember, these cars don't have traction control. They don't have the modern driver assistance. A little bit too much throttle and you can lose the back end very quickly. Renault 5 GT is particularly bad because the wheelbase is so short. So it's very hard to save once it happens. This wasn't an overcorrection. I think once this happened, The driver was a passenger. I do not think this one could have been saved once it was initiated. But of course it was initiated because of a liberal application of throttle coming out of that corner. It's a real shame to lose a car in that way. Well, that's all I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed this format. I have no idea. I've always wanted to do one of these videos, but I don't know if anybody's gonna watch it. If you did like it and you want me to do more of them, leave a comment down below so I know you do. Bye.